First Contact Incident. Admiral Vexterra of the Galactic Confederation's 7th Fleet had witnessed countless space battles in her 3 centuries of service, but nothing had prepared her for this moment. Her crystalline appendages trembled as she watched the tactical display, trying to comprehend what she was seeing. "Impossible," she whispered, her voice resonating through the command chamber of her flagship. "Run the combat analysis again." The massive holographic display showed a scene that defied all established principles of space warfare. A single human vessel, barely a quarter the size of the smallest Confederation cruiser, had just systematically dismantled 3 of her most advanced warships. The human ship's hull was scared, its shields were failing, and by all logic, it should have been destroyed in the first exchange. High Admiral, her tactical officer, Corin, spoke up, his bioluminescent patterns pulsing with confusion. "The analysis confirms our initial readings. They're using projectile weapons." The statement hung in the air like a physical presence. Projectile weapons. In an age of quantum-locked plasma cannons and gravitational disruption beams, these humans were fighting with what amounted to sophisticated rocks. Yet somehow, they were winning. "Show me the engagement replay," Vexterra ordered, her inner membranes retracting to sharpen her focus. The hologram shifted, displaying the battle from its beginning. The human vessel had been discovered near the outer reaches of the Helios sector, in what the Confederation had assumed was unclaimed space. Standard first contact protocols had been initiated, but something had gone wrong. A miscalibration in the scanning beams had been interpreted as a weapons lock, and the situation had spiraled into conflict. What happened next had shattered every combat doctrine in the Confederation's military handbook. Instead of maintaining distance and attempting to match the Confederation's superior firepower, the human vessel had done the unthinkable. It had charged straight at the nearest Confederation cruiser, corkscrewing through space in a pattern that seemed random but somehow avoided 90% of the incoming fire. "Pause playback," Vexterra commanded. "Corin, explain what I'm seeing." The tactical officer's bioluminescence flickered anxiously. "The humans appear to be using their ship's rotation to actually aim their weapons, High Admiral. Those projectiles, they're not guided. They're using the ship's momentum and rotation to literally throw them at us. Our predictive defense systems are calibrated for energy weapons and guided projectiles. These are just metal slugs accelerated to relativistic speeds." The replay continued. The human ship had closed to point-blank range, a suicide tactic by any reasonable standard. And then something even more extraordinary had happened. It had started ejecting what appeared to be debris. "Those weren't random ejections," Corin explained, his voice tight with professional anxiety. "Each piece of debris was carefully calculated. When our ships attempted to dodge, they moved exactly where the humans predicted. 3 of our cruisers were disabled by kinetic impacts before they could adjust their defensive algorithms." Vexterra felt a sensation she hadn't experienced since her early days in the Academy. Uncertainty. What about their communication patterns? Surely we can derive their command structure, their tactical doctrine. A new hologram appeared, showing communication analysis patterns. Where Confederation forces showed clear, hierarchical command structures, the human vessel's internal communications looked like chaos. Orders and responses flowed in all directions, crew members offering suggestions and alternatives without apparent regard for rank. "Their command structure appears to be fluid," the communications analyst reported. "They adapted based on who has the best idea in the moment. We've recorded instances of lower-ranked crew members suggesting tactical adjustments that were immediately implemented by their superiors." Vexterra's appendages curled inward, a gesture of deep thought among her species. "And their casualties? Surely such aggressive tactics." "Minimal," Corin interrupted, then quickly added an apology for the breach of protocol. "High Admiral, they appeared to have calculated every possible outcome. What looked like reckless maneuvers were precisely planned. Even their apparent vulnerabilities were engineered to draw us into disadvantageous positions." The command chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. The Confederation had encountered thousands of spacefaring species over its long history. Each one followed predictable patterns based on their evolution, their technology, their cultural development. But these humans send a priority message to Central Command. Vex Terra finally ordered. First contact protocols were insufficient. We are dealing with something unprecedented. These humans don't just think outside standard parameters. They don't acknowledge that parameters exist at all. As her crew rushed to comply, Vex Terra watched the replay one final time. The human vessel was now holding position, its weapons powered down but clearly ready. They were waiting for the Confederation's next move. And one more thing, she added. Advise Central Command that our standard classification system is inadequate. We need a new category entirely. These humans, they're not just another spacefaring species. They're something we've never seen before, warriors who have turned improvisation itself into a science. The message was sent, and Vex Terra turned her attention back to the waiting human vessel. She had a feeling this was just the beginning of a very long, very interesting relationship with this new species. The Confederation would need to radically rethink its approach to both diplomacy and warfare. Because one thing was already clear: the humans didn't play by anyone's rules but their own. The neural advantage. Dr. Selvak stood before the Confederation's High Council, his tentacles twitching with barely contained excitement. The xenobiologist had spent the last 3 months studying human neural patterns, and what he'd discovered had kept him awake for days. Distinguished council members, he began, activating the chamber's holographic display. What you're seeing is not a malfunction or random noise. This is the neural activity of a human brain during combat simulation. The display showed a chaotic storm of synaptic connections, patterns forming and dissolving at speeds that seemed impossible. Colors shifted and swirled, representing different types of cognitive processes occurring simultaneously. First speaker, Cathera, leaned forward, her crystalline form catching the light. This cannot be accurate. No sentient species could process information in such a disordered manner. That's exactly what makes humans unique, Selvak countered. While our brains evolve to identify and follow optimal patterns, human minds actively seek to break them. They call it thinking laterally, approaching problems from unexpected angles. He gestured, and the display shifted to show comparative scans. On the left, you see a Confederation tactical officer solving a combat scenario. Notice the clean, efficient neural pathways, each thought following logically from the last. Now look at the human. The council members shifted uncomfortably as they observed the apparent chaos of human thought patterns. Where the Confederation officer's mind showed clear, straight lines of reasoning, the human's brain lit up like a solar storm, connections forming between seemingly unrelated concepts. But surely this is inefficient, second speaker Vortal objected. Their neural architecture should collapse under such strain. Selvak's tentacles rippled with academic enthusiasm. That's the fascinating part. Humans don't just tolerate this neural chaos. They thrive on it. Their brains are constantly forming new connections, finding patterns where we see none, and imagining possibilities that we would dismiss as impossible. The hologram changed again, showing footage from a recent training exercise. A human squad faced off against Confederation combat simulators, armed with deliberately inferior weapons and equipment. The council watched as the humans used their environment in ways the simulation hadn't been programmed to expect. They turned their own power packs into improvised explosives, Selvak narrated. They used maintenance tools as weapons. One human even exploited a glitch in our targeting systems by timing her movements to our standard combat algorithms. The simulators couldn't adapt because they were designed to respond to logical, predictable tactics. First speaker Cathera's crystalline structure dimmed slightly, a sign of deep concern. You're suggesting their apparent primitive nature is actually an advantage. Precisely, Selvak confirmed. Our civilization has spent millennia perfecting our technology, our tactics, our very thought processes. We've eliminated inefficiencies, optimized our responses, created perfect protocols for every situation. But in doing so, we've become predictable. He brought up one final display, showing the neural activity of a human pilot during the recent first contact incident. This pilot wasn't just operating their ship, they were simultaneously calculating trajectories, predicting our responses, formulating new tactics, and coordinating with their crew, all while experiencing what they call adrenaline rush, a state we would consider severe biological stress, but which actually enhances their performance. The council chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. It was third speaker Merle who finally voiced what they were all thinking. How do we defend against an enemy whose greatest weapon is their own unpredictability? That's just it, Selvak replied, his tentacles curling with excitement. I don't believe we should try to defend against them at all. Think of what we could learn from them. Their neural plasticity, their ability to find solutions where we see none, their capacity to thrive in chaos. These aren't just combat advantages. They're evolutionary gifts that could benefit our entire civilization. He paused, letting his next words carry their full weight. The human mind isn't primitive. It's revolutionary. They haven't developed along our path of increasingly perfect order. Instead, they've mastered the art of creative chaos. Every human is, in essence, a living quantum computer, constantly processing multiple possibilities simultaneously and choosing the one that no one else would expect. First speaker Thera rose, her crystalline form pulsing with decision. Your recommendations, Doctor. We need to radically revise our approach to human integration into the galactic community, Selvak stated firmly. Instead of trying to make them conform to our standards of thought and behavior, we should be learning from their cognitive flexibility, their seeming disadvantages, their emotional responses, their illogical leaps of intuition, their constant drive to question and challenge established patterns. These are actually the keys to their success. As the council debated his findings, Selvak added one final observation. In all my years studying xenobiology, I've never seen a species that views limitations as opportunities quite like humans do. They don't try to overcome their chaos. They've weaponized it. And if we're wise, we'll learn to do the same. Operation Impossible. Captain Sarah Chen stood in the briefing room of the UES Daedalus, studying the holographic display of what most species in the galaxy would consider a suicide mission. The target was a swarm-high fortress, a massive structure floating in the upper atmosphere of a gas giant, protected by gravitational shields that made conventional attacks impossible. The swarm, a hostile collective of insectoid beings, had been raiding Confederation worlds for months. Their atmospheric fortress was considered impregnable, using the gas giant's violent storms as both shield and weapon. 3 Confederation fleets had already failed to breach its defenses. So, Chen addressed her small team. Who's ready to do the impossible? Lieutenant James Rodriguez, her demolitions expert, grinned. You mean the improbable, Cap. Nothing's impossible, just poorly understood. The plan they'd devised violated at least 15 different laws of conventional military strategy. The Confederation advisors had called it insane. Chen called it Tuesday. Walk me through it one more time, she said, even though every person in the room had memorized their role. Commander Aisha Patel, their science officer, stepped forward. We're going to ride the lightning, literally. The gas giant's storms generate electromagnetic discharges powerful enough to disrupt even swarm shields, but only for nanoseconds. Too brief for conventional weapons to exploit. Which is why we're not using conventional weapons, Rodriguez continued. We've modified our drop pods to act as electromagnetic capacitors. When a lightning bolt hits us, instead of trying to deflect it, we'll channel it. Chen nodded. The swarm expects everyone to avoid the lightning. They'll never expect us to aim for it. The room's atmosphere was tense but focused. This was what humans did best, turning seemingly insurmountable obstacles into advantages. Once the lightning supercharges our pods, Patel explained, We'll have exactly 2.3 seconds before the energy disperses. In that window, the electromagnetic pulse will temporarily override the fortress's gravitational shields. And that's when we go full crazy. Lieutenant Maya Wong, their pilot, chimed in with a predatory smile. We're not just going to slip through their shields. We're going to use their own defensive systems against them. The plan relied on precise timing, split-second decisions, and the kind of improvisational thinking that made other species' tactical computers crash. The team would need to ride the storm's updrafts, navigate through atmosphere dense enough to crush most ships, and synchronize their attack with random lightning strikes. The swarm's greatest weakness, Chen continued, is their rigid hierarchy. Every drone, every system, operates on predetermined protocols. They can't adapt quickly enough to something this unconventional. Hours later, as Chen's team prepared for deployment, she received one final communication from Confederation Command. The alien text translated to, "Human operation classified as mathematically impossible. Success probability calculation returns null value. Advise immediate mission abort." Chen shared the message with her team. Their laughter echoed through the preparation chamber as they suited up. The drop began at the edge of the gas giant's atmosphere. 5 pods, each barely larger than their occupants, plunged into the maelstrom. Confederation observers watched in horror as the humans deliberately piloted into the heart of the storm system. "Lightning strike in 3, Wang's voice crackled over the comm. 2, 1. The world went white. Chen felt the electricity surge through her pod's modified systems, her hair standing on end despite the insulated suit. The energy readouts went off the scale. "Ride the wave," she commanded. "Formation Delta." The team executed their maneuver with practiced precision. 5 pods, transformed into electromagnetic projectiles, spiraled through the momentarily disrupted shields. They followed the fortress's own gravitational field lines, turning the massive defensive system into a guidance path. Inside the fortress, the swarm's collective consciousness registered an impossibility. Their sensors showed 5 small objects materializing inside their innermost defenses, bypassing security measures that had repelled entire fleets. The humans struck critical systems simultaneously, their lightning-charged pods releasing electromagnetic pulses that sent cascading failures through the swarm's neural networks. Rodriguez's modified charges exploited the fortress's own power distribution system, turning it into a weapon against its creators. 60 seconds to primary core overload, Paddle reported calmly, as if she wasn't standing in the heart of an enemy fortress rigged to implode. "Extraction route confirmed," Wong added. "The northeastern energy conduit will give us just enough boost to clear the blast radius." Chen allowed herself a small smile as her team synchronized their withdrawal. The swarm, for all their technological superiority, had fallen victim to the same assumption as everyone else. They'd optimized their defenses against logical attacks, never considering that someone would be crazy enough to use the planet's own lightning as a weapon. As the fortress began to break apart behind them, Chen's team rode the explosion's shockwave to safety. Their modified pods, systems fried but still intact, were picked up by the waiting Daedalus. Hours later, as Chen filed her report, she included a special note for the Confederation analysts. "The difference between impossible and improbable is imagination. Humans don't see obstacles. We see unopened doors. Your computers said this mission had a 0% chance of success. That's because they couldn't calculate for human creativity, determination, and our particular talent for turning nature's own forces into allies. Next time you run the numbers, remember to factor in the impossible. That's where humans live." The learning curve. Grand Strategist Zixtal of the Confederation War Academy stood before his most elite class of tactical specialists, his crystalline form radiating frustration. The holographic display behind him showed dozens of battle scenarios, each ending in an unexpected human victory. 3 standard cycles, he announced, his voice resonating through the chamber. For 3 cycles, we have attempted to create a comprehensive counter-strategy to human military doctrine. Today, I must admit something unprecedented in my 4 centuries of teaching. We have failed. The assembly of alien tacticians stirred uncomfortably. They represented the finest military minds from 50 different species, yet none had successfully predicted human behavior in combat simulations. Observer Report 2749. Zixtal continued, activating a new hologram. A human mining vessel, unarmed, confronted by pirates. The humans vented their cargo hold, creating a debris field that damaged the pursuing ships. They then used their mining lasers, tools designed for cutting rock, to disable the pirates' engines. He switched to another display. Report 3158. A human diplomatic shuttle, ambushed by separatist forces. Rather than surrender, they polarized their viewport shields to create a makeshift solar reflector, temporarily blinding their attackers' targeting systems. The tactical specialists watched intently as more examples appeared. Humans using communication arrays as improvised weapons, converting life support systems into explosive devices, even programming maintenance robots for combat roles. The pattern, Zixtal declared, is that there is no pattern. Every time we think we understand human tactical doctrine, they innovate. When we prepare for innovation, they use classical military strategies. When we expect both, they create entirely new approaches. A Meridian war scholar raised her tentacle. Could we not program our combat systems to generate random responses, matching human unpredictability? An excellent suggestion, Zixtal replied, and one we've tried. The results were enlightening. He displayed another simulation. Our randomized combat algorithms produced chaos, yes, but not effectiveness. Human unpredictability isn't truly random. It's intuitive, adaptive, and most importantly, purposeful. He brought up Dr. Selvak's neural pattern studies. Humans don't just think outside conventional parameters. They question why parameters exist at all. When we create a doctrine to counter their strategies, they don't just find ways around it. They fundamentally challenge its underlying assumptions. The display shifted to footage from a recent joint military exercise. Confederation forces had been certain they'd finally understood human tactics. They'd prepared for unconventional strategies, equipped their ships with countermeasures for improvised weapons, and programmed their combat computers to expect the unexpected. The humans had responded by using completely conventional tactics, so conventional that the Confederation forces had dismissed them as obvious feints, looking for the real strategy until it was too late. They're not just unpredictable, Zixtal explained. They're meta-unpredictable. They understand how we think about their unpredictability and use that understanding against us. When we expect chaos, they give us order. When we expect order, they give us chaos. A Ketheri battlemaster spoke up, his armored carapace clicking with agitation. Then how do we proceed? How do we prepare our forces to face an enemy that defies preparation? Zixtal's crystalline form pulsed with what might have been amusement. That, esteemed colleagues, is precisely the breakthrough we needed. We've been asking the wrong question. Instead of how do we counter human tactics, we should ask how do we learn from them. He displayed a final set of statistics. Since beginning joint operations with human forces, Confederation units that train directly with humans have shown a 300% increase in combat effectiveness. Not because they've learned to fight like humans. That's likely impossible given our different evolutionary and cultural backgrounds. Rather, they've learned to think about combat in new ways. The assembly watched as Zixtal brought up footage of the latest generation of Confederation officers, ones who had trained alongside humans. They showed a flexibility of thought that would have been considered dangerous or unstable just a few cycles ago. The humans have taught us something valuable, Zixtal concluded. True tactical superiority isn't about having the perfect doctrine or the most advanced technology. It's about maintaining the ability to question everything, including your own assumptions. The moment you think you have the perfect system is the moment you become vulnerable to someone who thinks differently. He faced his class, his crystalline form now glowing with conviction. We cannot outthink the humans or predict their actions, but we can learn from their approach. They've shown us that the strongest defense isn't an impenetrable shield. It's the ability to turn any situation to your advantage. The best defense isn't overwhelming force. It's the capacity to attack in ways your opponent never considered possible. As the assembly digested this revelation, Zixtal added a final observation. The humans have given us a gift, though many still don't recognize it. They've shown us that our drive for perfection, for the ultimate doctrine, the unbeatable strategy, was itself a weakness. In a universe of infinite possibilities, the only truly effective approach is to remain eternally adaptable, eternally questioning, and eternally learning. The Alliance proposal. The Grand Chamber of the Confederation Council had never seen such an assembly. Representatives from over 1,000 species filled the vast space, their varied forms creating a living tapestry of galactic diversity. At the center of attention stood Fleet Admiral Helena Martinez, the first human to address the full council. The recent swarm crisis had forced the Confederation to confront an uncomfortable truth. Their perfect systems, their advanced technology, and their millennia of established protocols had proven insufficient against an enemy that defied conventional warfare. Yet a handful of humans had succeeded where entire fleets had failed. Distinguished members of the council, Martinez began, her voice calm but commanding. I stand before you not as a conqueror or a superior force, but as a representative of a species that sees the galaxy differently than you do. And that difference, I believe, is exactly what we all need. The holographic displays activated, showing scenes from the past year of human Confederation interaction. Joint military exercises, scientific collaborations, diplomatic exchanges, each revealing a pattern of mutual growth through difference. Your civilization has achieved wonders, Martinez continued. You've mastered the fundamental forces of the universe, created technologies that seem like magic to younger races, and built a society that spans galaxies. But in your pursuit of perfection, you've developed a blind spot, the inability to see beyond established patterns. She gestured to Dr. Selvak's neural pattern studies. Your scientists have analyzed our minds, trying to understand how we think. Your military leaders have studied our tactics, attempting to predict our strategies. What you've discovered is that humans aren't superior. We're different. We don't see chaos as a problem to be solved, but as an opportunity to be exploited. We don't view limitations as endpoints, but as challenges to overcome. The chamber filled with a low hum of discussion as Martinez brought up footage from various human-alien collaborations. Look at what we've already achieved together. Your engineers, working with human intuition, have developed hybrid technologies that neither of us could have created alone. Your tactical specialists, training alongside human forces, have learned to think in ways that make them more effective than ever before. First speaker Cthera's crystalline form pulsed with interest. You speak of mutual benefits, Admiral Martinez, but the Confederation has stood for order and stability for millennia. How do we maintain that while embracing the uncertainty your species represents? Martinez smiled. By understanding that true stability doesn't come from rigid structures, but from adaptability. The strongest tree isn't the one that never bends, it's the one that knows how to flex in the wind. Humanity doesn't want to destroy your order. We want to help it evolve. She activated a final display, showing the proposed structure for a new kind of alliance. We're not asking you to become like us, just as we don't intend to become like you. Instead, we're proposing a true synthesis. Your profound understanding of the universe's laws combined with our ability to think beyond them. Your technological mastery merged with our talent for improvisation. Your strategic depth enhanced by our tactical flexibility. The chamber erupted in discussion, countless species debating among themselves. Martinez waited patiently until the first speaker called for order. Your proposal is unprecedented, Cthera stated. No species has ever suggested such a fundamental revision of Confederation structure. Exactly, Martins replied. And that's precisely why it's needed. The galaxy is changing. The swarm was just the beginning. There will be other challenges that can't be overcome by following established protocols. You need what humanity offers: the ability to see new solutions, to think in ways that transcend traditional boundaries. She paused, letting her next words carry their full weight. But more importantly, we need you. Humanity's greatest strength is our adaptability, our creativity, our ability to overcome challenges through unconventional thinking. But without the foundation of knowledge and stability that the Confederation provides, we're like a ship with powerful engines, but no navigation system. The council chambers fell silent as the implications sank in. It was third speaker Merle who finally spoke. You're suggesting that our very differences are what make this alliance essential. Precisely, Martins confirmed. The Confederation has spent millennia building the most advanced civilization in known space. Humanity has spent its existence learning to overcome limitations through innovation and adaptability. Apart, we're each powerful but incomplete. Together, we could be something unprecedented. A civilization that combines the best of order and chaos, stability and adaptation, wisdom and innovation. First speaker Thera rose, her crystalline form glowing with decision. Admiral Martinez, you have given us much to consider. But I believe I speak for many when I say that your arguments are persuasive. The swarm crisis showed us that our traditional approaches are no longer sufficient. Perhaps it is time for the Confederation to evolve. As the Council moved to formal deliberations, Martinez added one final thought. In all of human history, our greatest achievements have come not from having every advantage, but from learning to turn our limitations into strengths. We don't offer the Confederation perfection. We offer something better: the eternal capacity for growth, adaptation, and evolution. Together, we can build something greater than either of us could achieve alone. The vote, when it came, was unprecedented in Confederation history. For the first time in 10,000 years, the Council moved to fundamentally alter the structure of their society. The Human Confederation Alliance was born, not as a merger of equals, but as a synthesis of complementary strengths. As Martinez left the chamber, she smiled at the thought of what this new partnership would bring. Humanity had found its place in the galaxy, not by becoming like the advanced species they'd encountered, but by showing them the value of being different. In the end, their greatest perceived weakness, their unpredictability, their chaos, their constant drive to challenge established limits, had proven to be exactly what the galaxy needed.